Taiba, is that you?
Like I hear.
Okay, yeah, I can hear you, but you're going to have to talk clearly into the phone.
Okay, all right. Can you hear me
Okay.
now?
All right, yeah, just hang on. The meeting hasn't started yet, but it will be.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right.
Rita.
We're used to the high school kids. Can you sign that paper? Hopefully it'll be a quick one. We're all banking on it being quick. Poor Dustin, you're going to kill me, aren't you? I know. Hi, Claire, how are you? Every day's a challenge.
What's that? Oh, like I have any control.
Want to go and pick her brain. My granddaughter wants to her for Christmas. Oh, she's like losing it, but she wants to. She does not. She has a gap code, something. It's attached to my daughter's phone, but it's like instead of giving her a cell phone, then she can tell that she's attached to it. 11. Yeah, she wanted a phone right now. My daughter said, "We're not getting it." Like, you are no. But they got her this. It's called Gap something or other. My daughter programs it, and then the numbers that she can either call or text or whatnot. And then of course it'll call. I don't know. She, I don't know which one. Huh? Yeah. Yeah. So of course Megan said, "You don't need them," and then of course she said, "Man, what do you think?" Tyba, we're still waiting on them to come out of executive session.
Okay, no worries. Thanks.
Mayor, Mrs. Sultana's on the line.
Hey Art, how you doing tonight? Need your winter coat out there tonight.
It's nice out.
Yeah. Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was colder earlier today.
Welcome back.
That is a good iron shot.
Hello, Rita.
Hello there, Mr. O'Connell. How are you? I'm glad to hear that.
I'd like to call this meeting of the State of Session of City Council to order this November 9th, 2022. Please rise for the invocations pledge, followed by the pledge of the flag. Tonight we pray for your guidance and help us in our efforts to satisfy the needs that we need to be met by our residents. Strengthen us to make the tough decisions that affect so many. We pray that we'll be fruitful and please guide us at this meeting to be productive, effective, and decisive. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Clerk. No problem.
Okay. Mr. Brown? Mr. Ettinger?
Here.
Mr. Milan?
Here.
Mr. O'Connell?
Here.
Dr. Ruggles?
Here.
Mrs. Sultana?
Here.
Mayor Panto?
Here. Approval of the agenda.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any additions or deletions? Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Okay.
Action on the minutes of our October 26th meeting.
Move the minutes.
Moved
Second.
and seconded. Any additions, deletions, or corrections? Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
And Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
At this time, we have our consent agenda. Is there any changes?
Public comment first, Mayor.
Oh, yeah, public comment. Jeez.
I'm sorry.
I had it crossed off already. Public comment on agenda items only. If you have any comment on agenda items, if not, there's time at the end of the meeting for public comment as well on anything affecting the city of Easton. Seeing none, we'll move right into the consent agenda.
Okay, under the consent agenda, we have a resolution being introduced by Mayor Panto, which would waive the parking meter fees for the 2022 holiday season. We have a resolution being introduced by Mr. O'Connell that would authorize the city to apply for a grant for a bikeways project. A resolution also being introduced by Mr. O'Connell, authorizing the city to apply for a grant for the purchase of fire radios. And we have an agreement being introduced by Mr. Milan between the City of Easton and Spring Garden Easton Limited, which would allow them to rent parking spaces in our new 4th Street garage upon completion.
I move the consent agenda. Second.
Moved Moved in second. Discussion, Dr. Ruggles?
This is just a question for Joel. In the agreement with the Spring Garden,
Yeah.
we have in the document that the individual signs the
Yes.
fact that if the parking garage is full, you're not guaranteed a space.
Correct.
But that's not in the contract.
The contract incorporates that by exhibit. There's a provision in the contract.
I saw that, yeah.
Yeah, in other words, that becomes an item between the individual parking person and the garage itself in the city.
Okay.
As far as satisfying the demands for parking for the project, the city's satisfied that if you've secured a spot as much as any other monthly parker would secure a spot, you've done all you can. We just need, the garage itself needs to have an escape hatch just in the event that something happens and the spots aren't open, so that the owner, the owner of the building will not be in violation because all of a sudden one of the parkers can't get into the garage.
Right.
That parker will have a problem just like any other monthly parker
Yeah.
who needs to use that garage. But
Okay.
we needed to build in something that frees the garage from an absolute responsibility to have a spot there all the time.
Right.
So it's similar, by the way, that language is similar to every other monthly parker.
Okay.
Other items I tweaked a little bit.
So the reference to to Appendix A, I think it was, is sufficient to cover
It's
that particular item in the contract.
Yeah, that's to make it clear to the well, we're calling the tenant in that agreement, to have them understand that the people they give the spots to, we need to cover ourselves both ways so that the individual parker knows what the limitation is. For purposes of the person we're entering into the agreement with, they're just satisfied that they got 16, or no, in this case,
12.
that 12. They reduced it. It was originally 16, but they think they could come up with 4 other off-street spots. I was just looking for the actual document, but I remember it well enough.
Okay. Okay.
Is the exhibit a separate document? Because it wasn't included in this.
It is a separate document. It should have been included.
Does it have to be included?
Well, the ordinance that was referenced in the memo that I submitted state that the lease agreement or whatever agreement that's put in place between the city for parking and the owner of a building, for example, then subsequently tenant, has to be approved or satisfactory to the solicitor.
Right, but he's
No. What you're saying is that there's supposed to
representing.
be an exhibit. The exhibit,
I-
I don't know where it slipped out,
Okay.
but the exhibit should.
I mean, if it's de minimis, I'm not gonna make a big deal about it.
Yeah, the exhibit should definitely
I
be.
got the exhibit. I don't.
It's right after the.
It's right after the contract.
Oh, yeah,
Sign.
City of Easton Parking Garage Use Agreement, right after the signature lines. City of Easton Parking
It's the last 2 pages.
Garage Use Agreement.
Oh, it doesn't say Exhibit A.
No, it doesn't say
No, it doesn't
Exhibit
say
A,
Exhibit
but that's.
All I
thought
was
it
saying is
did in
that
the
Joel
contract.
also looked at that exhibit.
No, well, I
Sorry,
prepared.
he already looked at
I
this. It's
prepared
done.
that. I prepared that exhibit. What Mr. Campos is referring to is in the event they decide to terminate, and they're going to have to establish that they have proper alternative parking.
So, okay, which brings me to my next question. Is this how we're gonna be moving forward with how we're gonna lease spaces
Correct.
to commercial tenants?
Yes.
This is the policy now. This is how we're gonna go.
I think if it's a condition of
Zoning.
zoning, yeah,
Right.
Well, is this a condition of zoning?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, this is a decent model. I mean, this came about because they know, the applicant knows that for his application, he needs to provide 16 parking spots, off-street parking spots,
So
for this expansion of the bottom of Spring Garden Street.
I'm gonna be the antagonist tonight.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. You're okay with that?
Yeah,
When Pine Street goes away,
right.
those commercial tenants will be displaced. We're gonna move them here or to 4th Street.
Right.
my question is, is this going to be the new model moving forward,
moving forward.
regardless of zoning? Because I think this actually helps confirm what's there and what's not there.
That's what we're trying to do.
This is a requirement for the zoning.
Right.
And it's,
That's it, but
But regardless of zoning, I'm asking from this point on, is it the intent of the administration to bring these to us when Pine Street goes down and we start organizing all these different tenants into an agreement?
no,
If you have,
those projects are already existing. It's like the Confluence and the Marquee. They will, if they can't provide enough parking, they have to buy the parking from the city.
That's
Yeah,
my point, Mayor. I
yeah,
think
the-
my point is just to keep record keeping, I think this is the best way to go.
So what happens is when we lease, let's say 300, 450 spaces, whatever is in the 4th Street garage, we can't lease, we can't do it anymore. They're gonna have to find their own parking, or they're not gonna be able to build.
yeah,
It'll actually control
I
growth.
think,
But-
Peter, I think eventually, if there's like maybe a turnover in ownership, will they have to
They-
then seek?
Let me ask you a question.
approval again?
Let me
yeah,
bring up
there's a distinction. I just want to make a distinction between, the only reason this is coming up here
Right.
is because we as a city have insisted that their agreement be perpetual. The problem we've had in the past, a problem, and we've addressed, by the way, at the last planning commission meeting, there was another project up by the Easton Public Library on Northampton Street, and there's a parking issue there too. And we devised some language in the course of that meeting, which hopefully will become a regular piece to address these issues of these mobile, I'll call them mobile parking spots, because they're referring to spots that are off the lot itself. And in that particular case, it's not the city parking, so we don't have a contract with them, but what we're putting into the approval is that they're going to need to establish this perpetual parking, and it will be controlled by proof on an annual basis. So we're building that. You're not going to see those. Those are all going to be built into the resolutions where I'm dealing with outside providers. Where the city is providing it, this would be a good model. And I'm not talking about the Express Times wants to rent out 20 spots because they're going to repopulate the downtown offices because
Right.
they received a grant from some person who purchased the Express Times and is going to bring it back to its heyday. And with all the reporters they're going to have,
So, the Express Times wants to rent 20 spaces from us January 1st.
yeah, that's a separate agreement. That's
Is it going to be similar to this? It's going to come by
no, not
resolution?
necessarily, because this is only here because we want it to be perpetual. They'll sign whatever the regular agreement is
Gotcha.
for monthly parking.
This is going to be the administrative.
This is the one when they need zoning requirements.
Right,
for
no,
off-street
but what
parking.
I'm saying is from this point on, so we're not going to require somebody who's going to rent 20 spaces from us to sign these agreements and have them come accounts for approval.
Right.
No,
They're
no,
already
if-
zoning.
if-
They're already in
if-
place. Right.
If they are just from the public who wants to get monthly parking, it's,
The primary purpose of this is so that I rent from Louis Campos has a empty 20 empty spaces. I say
Right.
I'm going to rent his 20 spaces, and then a year later, Louis Campos decides to build on that lot, and this gentleman no longer has his 20 spots. That's the reason for the perpetual agreement.
right. And the thing is, there was really a question as to whether we even needed to bring it for approval. And I just thought it was better to do so because so everybody in council understands the process. And you are, and because there's always been the expressed concern about adequate parking in the parking lot, and this gives you a view in connection with development itself, with new development.
Dr. Ruggles.
So, first of all, it does say Exhibit A in the document, and
Okay.
and the exhibit is not
Okay, I think it's possible. Rita, could you just put EXA on it?
Yes.
okay. And the
Well,
other
which
thing
form am I putting it on, though?
On the
The
parking
use,
garage.
the use agreement, on the use agreement, the two-page document that follows the
and the other thing is the language here doesn't specify that specific form. It says, or other form required of the actual individuals who will be other form. I mean, that language is not necessarily adopted in this contract. And
Well-
I'm just trying to protect us.
Wait,
from
I
the-
have here, each tenant assigned the space to complete a form similar to that set forth in 3.4 below and Exhibit A, which may be revised from time to time. I don't want this to be an how we operate the garage and what a use agreement we have for the parking tenants. I want the city to be able to change that from time to time as demand is made. The contract that we have, this is the aspect of the contract that will deal with the individual resident parkers. It's not, once they assign a resident to a parking agreement, then they'll deal with the garage the way any other resident parker would.
So right now, they would give their license plate number. In the future, they'll have a permit on to get back.
Well,
to
if
the
we
car.
change method, I mean, we're talking about technology and changes all the time, and that may require a different exhibit.
Point.
That's why I used the word. Well, that's why I used the term similar to.
Yeah, similar to, or such other form required of the potential of the actual individuals who will be utilizing the parking garage.
No, it's
I
our
mean, so-
form.
Huh?
It's our. Were you looking at different? I'm looking at 3.1.
3.4. So to me, if I'm the owner, I'm like, well, that form could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have that particular language in it. So I'm signing a contract for 12 spots. Where are my 12 spots? I want to see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's not what we're doing.
No.
And I just think that language that's in that form should be in the contract.
It's incorporated by reference.
Yeah, but the reference is,
And it
it
should
might
be-
be this form, may not be this form.
Yeah, we have that. We don't want to sit here and negotiate every time there's a change of technology. Your little forms. This is
No,
something that's
all
administrative.
I'm saying is the language saying that recognize that if the parking lot is full, you may not get a spot.
Yeah.
That's all I was
That's number
thinking.
3 of the contract that the individual signs.
Yeah,
I know,
Number 3.
but
Right.
okay, never mind.
No.
I'm just
My
I'm
my
just
bigger
trying to
concern
protect
was the
us.
monthly rent.
That's all I'm trying to do.
So you're convinced that you're just tying it to city ordinance 285-42. So if it goes up to $100, it's $100.
Yeah. We talked about it. I mean, Lewis and I talked about it.
That was my.
We have to float with the ordinance.
So, Roger, I think we had that same discussion internally with Joel, and Joel advised that this still meets that same idea. So that's,
If we change that whole agreement completely, it's no longer similar.
Right.
Well, this is the whole idea of Exhibit A is that besides our agreement
We have
with
to have
the
one with the
with the
tenants.
tenant who's going to pay for all those spots, we're not going to deal with the individual resident parkers. We're going to deal with
We're gonna bill one-
with
the
the
landlord.
one landlord who's going to pay for those 12 spots each month, and they're going to assign them. But we got to know who they are, so we have to have some connection. So we're just pointing out in our contract with what we call the tenant. I think it's still called the tenant.
that's actually an important distinction. The way it works is that it's the management company that pays for those 12 spots, not the individual. I mean, the individual pays the management company or whatever,
The rent.
whatever,
Usually it's
however they
included in the
manage
rent.
it, right?
And
But from our perspective, it's
One
it's
check.
one payment for those 12 spots.
And we're telling the management company that as part of our deal, we're going to have each of their residents sign a contract that acknowledges essentially certain limitations, just like any other similar, I shouldn't say, because this is a little bit, this is tweaked from what is used for the other tenants.
Any other questions? Okay,
Roll call.
roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto.
Aye. There's no reports to be received by council. Move right into committee reports. Economic Development, Councilmember O'Connell.
Mayor, I don't have a report as such, but I did want to let everybody know that John Kingsley, our Economic Development Director, and Patrick Hunt, who is our assistant, our grant administrator, and Tanya Ruiz from GEDP, are in Lewiston, Maine. Lewiston is a city that is similar in size and makeup to Easton, and they're there to discuss the implementation of a HUD grant for Choice Neighborhoods. Choice Neighborhoods is a HUD program that we're doing now in the West Ward in order to we're taking down some old buildings and building new ones in their place to make the neighborhood more livable. And they're up there discussing this with Lewiston officials to see how the grant is being implemented. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Planning and Codes Committee, Mrs. Sultana.
I have no report, Mayor.
Okay. Public Safety Report, Councilman Ruggles.
I have no report.
Public Works Department, Councilman Ettinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I have one thing. Mr. Hopkins is going to explain a proposed change of the configuration at Larry Holmes Drive and Northampton Street.
Thank you, Councilman. So we've been in discussions with the developer of the Commodore for quite some time. They installed their traffic zone barricades probably close to a year ago. And, it became evident to us that, the crossing distance across Larry Holmes Drive from the existing limits of the zone are pretty attractive. It almost cut it in half. And so, we started talking to the developer about, would this be something you'd be willing to consider provided it passed the test of time and we, while we're watching it in real time, how it functions, monitoring it. I've spoken to both police and fire. They were okay with the proposed change. And then it became, what's the proper venue where we could discuss this and sort of vet it through as a concept. And I felt City Council was the right venue to discuss it. So this is a concept drawing that was delivered to us by the developer's engineer, which is what we had been discussing with them. If you notice, it maintains all the parking on the Northampton Street side, and then it bumps the curb out in front of the building, which we also think serves as a nice welcome and plaza as you come across the bridge into the city. And then as you proceed to the Larry Holmes Drive side of the building, it provides drop-off, which I think they desperately need there. That's certainly going to be a need of the building. The only change that actually has to be made is the hotel driveway that exits onto Larry Holmes would have to be right turn only. We did speak with the hotel owner, and they were fine with the change. So the decision is, aesthetically, does it look okay? Are there concerns about how it functions? From the staff's standpoint, we've been keeping a close eye on this since it was put in, and we haven't noticed any problems. The police haven't noticed any problems. Often when we discuss this, someone who's new to the concept might say, well, wow, it really backs up on the Free Bridge during PM peak. And that is true, but that is more of a result of the tolling policies of the Bridge Commission than it would be from this improvement. We haven't noticed any adverse effects to traffic. The costs for installing this would all be borne by the developer. Our real interest here is trying to get people across Larry Holmes Drive into the park system. We feel that as the downtown matures and we see some of these larger projects, I think there's going to be a much more intense use of people getting to the waterfront. It's an attractive place to be. That is not an easy intersection to cross, particularly in PM peak, just because there's so much traffic going through there. And we do have other ideas that we've been discussing to improve safety here, mostly for pedestrians. But I think this is a step in the right direction. But you don't want to take any. You have to air this out somewhere, and we wanted to start with City Council to see if there was questions, thoughts, concerns, anything like that.
Dr. Ruggles?
The only thing that I guess you looked at this with the current conditions down there, but when I looked at this, the first thing that I saw was I'm heading east on Northampton Street, and I want to turn left. I'm going to block everybody that's behind me because coming over the toll bridge is an endless stream of traffic, at certain times of the day. So I'm going to sit there trying to, and so an entire light cycle is going to go through, and I'm going to be the only movement through that intersection coming from west going to the east. We get that right down here on Northampton and Ferry.
Mm-hmm.
Northampton and 4th. Yeah. Somebody will come up there and want to turn left on Northampton Street. There's so many cars coming down 4th Street. You sit there, and I've sat there for 3 cycles of lights waiting for 3 people in front of me to turn left onto Northampton Street. And I'm sure some people have a lot more. But that was the only thing that I noticed here, because I think looking at this, it looks as though if somebody were there wanting to turn left prior to what's there now, there was room to go around them and proceed either turning right or go straight across the bridge.
So that condition actually exists today. There is parked cars pretty close to the corner on Northampton Street today. So if you were in the queue trying to make the left from Northampton onto Larry Holmes Drive, you will generally have to wait behind that car. The other issue with that is,
well, I'm just looking at the markings on the pavement here, and it looks clear that you could get around somebody from these markings that are on the drawing.
I think one of the problems with that, though, is because of the constant left turning stream. The major movement from the bridge is to come over the bridge and head left.
Yeah.
You'd probably have a hard time getting out onto Larry Holmes Drive anyway. That's the problem is the disparate tolling policy. I mean, you have so many people waiting in that queue. Like even when we redid the 3rd and Larry Holmes Drive intersection maybe 10 years ago, we couldn't find enough time in the cycle to handle clearing how many cars turn left off the bridge onto Larry Holmes Drive. So even if you could get around the car in front of you, I think you'd have difficulty getting on Larry Holmes Drive. But I have sat there myself behind someone trying to make the left,
yeah.
And you're right, it is tough. And PM peak is really where the signal cycle, I think, loses level of service. I think most other times of the day it's pretty traversable, but it really does kind of drop.
Back up on the Phillipsburg side, though, is all the way up to the toll bridge. I mean, it goes all the way up North Main Street and around.
Now it is.
I don't wait. I just turn around and go up to the toll bridge. Easy pass is $1.25, not $3.
Yeah,
but you're right.
It's bad now with the construction.
So in this drawing, it appears as though we're going to lose a parking spot on the north side of Northampton Street.
That could be correct.
Maybe 2.
Because this is simply a concept, it's the dimensions are probably, I mean, we have the ability to, say we don't want to lose 2 or we only want to lose 1. I think this is up for negotiation. Like I said, the real attractive part of the proposal for us is shortening that crossing distance. I just think as that project gets built out and others, now there's a new restaurant going in down on the 100 block. I think there's just going to be increased demand to get across here safely. And so that's really what we think is the benefit. And it also, it's so hard to function down there with the way the traffic is that, sort of thinning the sidewalk on Larry Holmes Drive and allowing them at least some drop-off area or, being able to drop someone off while you go park, just seems to be, a reasonable type of approach here. And we don't need to make any decisions. I can ask them to, get a full-scale drawing and come back. I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew the concept was out there and the discussion was ongoing.
Those would be my two inputs, but I would ask them, I don't see any reason for losing those parking spots.
Okay.
In my mind, I don't know what all the PennDOT rules and that, but I mean, I don't see any reason for losing those other than they were trying to draw a straight line.
I think one of them was they didn't want such a harsh taper that it would almost be like a barrier curb. Like I think they were looking to sort of gradually increase the radius out into the street.
Oh, no, I'm talking on the north side of Northampton. See the white line goes right through that first parking spot and
Oh, I'm sorry.
and portion of the next.
Yeah, I don't
that
see.
was the side. I mean the travel lane.
Yeah, I don't see the need for that either at
Okay,
all.
okay.
I think
That's
what
what I
you
was
do
talking
is you
about,
just
yeah.
put a hatch mark on the corner. No,
Right.
there's no need to lose parking there.
Yeah,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I thought you went the other side of the road.
Steve, who makes the decision on if you could have, like a delayed green light, like maybe perhaps coming from east to west, so that way, to Roger's point, to Councilman Ruggles' point, the
Left turn.
the
Light, yeah.
eastbound traffic could make a left or go straight, because it seems like that queue is not as long for sure.
Right. Oh,
But to your point, 3 or 4 or 5 cars could be stuck there for a whole cycle, for
Yeah.
2-3 cycles.
Right.
So that's why I was just curious about that.
So in Pennsylvania, generally the max signal cycle is 120 seconds, and you have to decide how to parse that time out. Now we can change that, like if there's a heavier AM peak or a heavier PM peak, you can change those timings to accommodate the ebb and flow of traffic. Ultimately, the way this process works would be if the city was in agreement on its side, we would then approach PennDOT, and all of this work would be done under the traffic signal permit. And we can propose a delayed green. In 2012, when we redid the waterfront parks, we did the best we could with the intersection we had. In fact, back at that time, there was no crosswalk at the bridge. So what happened was they expected people to cross Larry Holmes Drive, cross Northampton Street, and back across Larry Holmes Drive, and people were just walking in front of the bridge. There was no crosswalk protection, and there was no signal, and it was pretty dangerous. So we added that. We also added decorative crosswalks, hand-man signals, just to try and increase pedestrian safety. But ultimately, the process would be, it's whatever PennDOT would approve, and then once they issue us the permit, we are then responsible to implement it. They have an anti-backsliding policy, so generally intersections are graded like a report card, A through F, and you're not allowed to really. You have to make improvements if your level of service drops. And one of the reasons, so if you give signal time to that particular delayed green, you have to take it away from somewhere else on the cycle. And I think this intersection is probably functioning at such a low level of service for vehicles that I don't know where we'd get the time, but it's certainly something that could be part of that discussion. I just remember having trouble last time we sat down with them about this, and is mostly because of the traffic coming over the bridge.
I'm not the engineer, I'm just a user, just like Councilman Ruggles, and I noticed that too, and it's just a suggestion to, just for.
No, I think it's a great one, but those are the like the kind of reasons we run into difficulties trying to get those things implemented.
I know it's difficult dealing with them,
So what I can do is I'll go back and check on, just make sure there's no loss of parking, Councilman, and then I will ask about that left-hand turn issue and see if we can improve that.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
David, while you're going back to your seat, I just want to congratulate you. I mean, for you and I have taken the heat for the last 7-8 months about the circle, and I've gotten nothing but compliments during Bacon Fest because people actually saw it, and it looks good. And I'm really glad that the green, yellow, and red lights are going up again today. And I know they'll be on Flash all weekend, but they'll be working next week, so we're happy about that. Hopefully. Oh, it is open, yes, but it's still they're on Flash. But I'm just hoping that people see a red light, they'll stop instead of a blinking red. They just keep going around and around. So and it's making it much safer for our pedestrians.
Wait, you're changing it?
Yeah.
That's terrible. Yeah, I have to actually retrain myself. I just go through it anyway now.
Most people still will. Administration Committee, Mr. Milan, Councilman
I
Milan.
have nothing, Mayor.
Reporter Solicitor, Mr. Shear.
We had an executive session immediately prior to the city council meeting to advise of personnel issue.
Thank you. Report of the mayor. Just want to report that yesterday, several of us from the administration went up to Lehigh Valley Planning Commission to give our 10-minute presentation on the Community of Distinction Award. I'm very proud of the fact that Easton was nominated with two other municipalities to be a recipient next week at the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission Awards Breakfast of the Community of Distinction Award in Lehigh Valley. It's 62 municipalities. Only one will get it. So we're really excited about that. I just want to mention that for all the volunteers who worked Bacon Fest, thank you so much. It was a great event. I want to let you know that the report from the police department is there's not one single incident, not one. So we're really excited about that. Also, let you know that Mark reported to me that our parking revenue will cover our overtime. We received about $40,000 in parking fees. That should cover our overtime for public works, police, and fire. We did talk about the circle update, the traffic pattern, and just, for Winterfest, they've already started, the candles up already. They'll start putting the huts up and all that for the Winterfest. We've decided that the 300 block in Northampton Street will be available for parking. We'll keep the ice skating rink down at the 200 block again. And people, the 1/4 of the circle will be open to traffic. Everything else will be shut down. So if you park on the 300 block in Northampton Street, you'll be able to get out. So we're excited about that. And Councilman O'Connell has been meeting, talking about PennDOT. We've been meeting with the College Hill Neighborhood Association has been present, and PennDOT in the city to talk about Cattell Street corridor, specifically the Burke, Cattell, and Knox Avenue intersections. We think we came up with at least somewhat of a solution. I mean, it's still most of the accidents that occur there are definitely motorist error. They're human error. It's not because of the roadway. People just aren't paying attention. They're texting. They're on the phone. Or it's certainly not the roadway. The roadway's been there for 100 years. But as a person who lived on that block for 28 years, I can tell you, or I lived on there for 11 years, but owned a business there for 28 years, I can tell you that traffic there is really high speed. And they're not going 25 miles an hour. And I won't get on my soapbox about radar, but everybody knows how I feel about radar, and maybe we'll get radar this year. We didn't get it last year. But we're looking at possibly putting a median in from Knox Avenue all the way down to at least Burke, at least Cattell and Lafayette. I doubt we'll go down to Burke, but to stop people, to at least slow them down, channel them into a smaller area. And we'll see about that. From Knox, yeah. Oh, Councilman Ruggles was there too? Yeah.
No, it wasn't me.
Wasn't you? Oh, it was Councilman Ruggles. I'm sorry. Okay. Oh, that's right. You were in Choice Neighborhoods.
Mayor, I'm sorry. Which corridors were you talking about?
Cattell Street corridor at the Knox intersection, the Lafayette intersection, and the Burke intersection.
Thank you.
Primarily, but it's all bad.
Yeah.
I was there today. I mean, it's bad. I mean, you got truck traffic going out to the warehouses. You have that shouldn't even be on that road.
You have somebody hit the porch of your store.
Oh, yeah, that's gone. The window is gone. The porch is gone.
And I think somebody just went through the fence on
Yes.
Lafayette and Cattell there on that corner. They
Yep.
went through the fence because they came around and had no place to go.
Northwest corner, right?
Yeah.
There's always accidents there.
Yeah.
Seemingly. There's always a lot.
We got. All right, so if you haven't seen the circle, it's really worth a walk up there because you can't. Well, you can drive now too, but a walk is better. The crosswalks are absolutely gorgeous. I mean, hopefully people will be able to use the crosswalk. They don't have to cross 50 feet anymore, only 20 feet. Hopefully that'll be
Driving, you
better.
should pay attention, not look at the
Exactly. Mr. Campos, you're up.
Mayor, did you want to talk about the RFP that's going to be coming out for the quadrant?
Well, let's wait till it's done. There's a couple
Did-
corrections on
Okay,
it.
okay, all right.
There's a couple corrections on it.
I don't have a report because I submitted a memo with regards to that parking lease agreement. The only other thing regarding the HR manager position, we've been conducting interviews and we have some finalists, which we're going to start in-person interviews shortly. We'll keep you posted.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
It was regarding the HR manager position.
okay.
We're going into a final round of interviews.
Okay.
You want to also do any, last night, Mr. Brown isn't here tonight, but we did have a budget session, was our fourth budget session. Third?
Third.
Oh, yeah, third. And we have a fourth one next Tuesday. The budget, the only questions that came were the earned income tax. Mr. Lisinecki did send them out. Update on as to why we believe we'll hit those numbers. Do you want to add anything to that, Mark?
I don't believe so. I did put historical, I sent council historical information, some trends there, and what we think, where we'll end 2022, and then what the growth into 2023 would look like, you know, what sort of percentages we would need, and it'd be between 6 and 7% overall to get us from where we think we may end up here in 2022 to the 2023 number. So not a very, you know, dollar amount, it's a large number, but it's not that huge a number as far as percentage growth year over year.
Okay,
Mayor, is there a fourth budget session?
there's the final one.
Just when we introduce it at the 22nd?
When we introduce it, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We have to introduce it.
And that'll be done on Tuesday, the 22nd?
Tuesday, the 22nd.
Okay.
There's there's no correspondence, unfinished business, Madam Clerk.
Okay. We had Bill 28 that was introduced by Mr. Brown, which would make amendments to the 2022 general fund budget. But
So move.
Moved, is there a second?
Second.
Moved in second, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
We had Bill 29 that was also introduced by Mr. Brown, and that would amend the 2022 sewer fund budget.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded.
That's an ordinance.
That's an ordinance, yes.
Yeah.
It was already introduced.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any discussion on Bill 29? Roll call.
Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
And Mr. Brown? Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry, he wasn't here. Mr. Ettinger.
Aye.
I scratched him off. Okay, we have Bill number 30 that was introduced by Mr. Brown, which would amend Chapter 110 Pensions of the Code of the City of Easton.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
And Mr. Milan?
Aye.
And we have an ordinance that was introduced by Dr. Ruggles, which would amend the Chapter 560 Vehicles and Codes by creating a 15-minute parking pickup zone on the first legal space on the south side of the 600 block of Northampton Street, closest to 6th Street.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Isn't it the north side? Aren't we there isn't it there for the Chinese restaurant?
No, for the market.
No, for the
Oh,
market.
for the market. Oh,
Across the
okay.
street.
Chinese
Right.
has one already.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Dr. Ruggles,
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana,
Aye.
Mayor Panto,
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger,
Aye.
Mr. Milan,
Aye.
and Mr. O'Connell.
Aye.
There's no new business, so we'll move right into public comment. If you'd like to come up and give comment, 5 minutes, name and address, please. Anything dealing with the city of Easton. Art. Artie, you're up first.
I think this is yours, Peter. How
Oh,
the
boy.
radios cost $330,000? You're gonna buy 10,000 radios for the fire department?
Mr. Ravitz, I need your address.
Oh, sorry, 144 Church Street.
I thought that was it, but I couldn't.
So I can answer that for you. The radios that we're buying are very expensive. They're encrypted. The frequency they're using is a P25 frequency. and it's for the new CAD system that they're going to be using. They're going to be opening up the frequencies that the city of Bethlehem had. The county hasn't integrated them. Now they're going to integrate them now, so we have to get new radios.
How much is it each?
They're pretty expensive. They're like
They're
about
rated,
$10,000.
they're rated for
Actually,
How much is it?
high temperature.
This is cheaper than the original quote.
Yeah, it's actually they're expensive radios.
Yeah. This
You can't listen to them. Like you know how you have scanners? They're encrypted. You can't listen to them.
They're also rated for high temperature and fires. They're rated for
shock.
shock and fall.
Yeah, they're pretty high tech.
They also have on here in case a firefighter is in jeopardy, he can press it and everybody will get a call, all call.
How many radios are we talking about?
I think 27.
No.
27.
There's 3
No.
base stations. I'm trying to remember
That's
what I read.
It's like
$15,000
$27.
close to $14,000 a radio.
Well, yeah, there's warranty, there's accessories.
Yeah, those accessories.
Yeah, there's accessories, there's
They've
warranties.
been, and it was bid. I mean, obviously it was bid.
Yeah.
It's over the
These
threshold.
radios also have a lifespan. They're going to be about 20 years.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, anyone else like to address
Price
city
includes
council?
batteries, Artie.
Anyone else like to address city council? Ladies, you're here, but you don't have a question? Okay.
It's our turn to ask you questions now, right?
Okay. Look for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved in second discussion. Roll call.
Mr. O'Connell?
Aye.
Dr. Ruggles?
Aye.
Mrs. Sultana?
Aye.
Mayor Panto?
Aye.
Mr. Ettinger?
Aye.
And Mr. Milan?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
I thought when you said it, it sounded right.